In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6 PL 1975 231 S1 amended 2006 C70 S2, the Asbury Park Board of Education has provided adequate notice of this meeting by sending a notice of the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting to the Asbury Park Coaster on January 8th, 2021 via email. Copies of this notice have also been placed at the Administration Building Bulletin Board, District Schools, Asbury Park Municipal Building, Asbury Park Police Department, and filed with the City Clerk on January 8th, 2021. The Asbury Park School District will provide all comprehensive and progressive education where everyone possesses the skills and character to succeed in a diverse, evolving global society. Roll call, please, Mr. Hastings.
Thank you. Madam President, Ms. Alves Anderson? Here. Ms. Breach? Here. Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Grillo?
Here.
Mr. LaRocca?
Here.
Mr. Remy? Mr. Saunders? Ms. Lozinski?
Here.
Ms. Etienne?
I am here. Can we please stand for the flag? Ms. Cook, are you ready for your committee report?
Good evening, everyone. So we need a recommended board approval for the Intro for Science 5K, the science dimensions, 5th and 8th equipment, and science kits, which include safety equipment. Total cost of $35,722.22. Also recommended board approval for the renewal of teaching strategies professional development related to mandatory preschool curriculum, creative curriculum. All staff assigned to the pre-K program will be engaged in a series of professional development opportunities throughout the duration of the school year 2021-2022 that aligns to the preschool implementation guidelines and exceptions. Professional development will be provided for preschool staff at the Thurgood Marshall and Bradley Elementary, as well as three consortium schools alphabets, a little class in Acero, a total cost of $26,100. And lastly, the approval for the Lake House Music Academy to approve music programs to the Asbury Park School Districts for school years 2021-2022. The program includes the performance group in which students create performance materials using smartphones and device applications that allow for video and audio recording. Lake House will also work with our Dream Academy students in instrumental and technical music creation program. Total cost of $27,000. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
During the curriculum meeting, we had talked about how with Lake House Music Academy, we'd like to start seeing at some point kind of annual reports back from them to make sure that certain goals are met, or to see what metrics are in place with the music instruction that they do. I realize that it is enrichment, but at the same time, every year we seem to just automatically approve the money, and I think it's time that we start to see kind of what the results are. I also think it would be pretty entertaining to see this, like, even if they do a presentation, to see what the students themselves have done, and to make sure that there are actually real concrete outcomes and outputs from our partnership with Lake House, which I think it's been around. Our partnership with Lake House has been for what, 5 years now, 5 or 6 years. Have they ever kind of come back to say that there are things being done?
Yeah, they've actually done a couple shows here, a couple years ago. Last year was kind of, nothing, but they've actually performed here 2 or 3 years ago with their students, which was phenomenal. So, I mean, they have come back and shown what they've done.
Yeah, I mean, what I want to see is, I mean, the performance can be part of it, but I think actually having a presentation from Lake House to say, this is how many students, we worked with. This is where they were when they started, with us. This is where they are now, and to kind of see what progression there is going on with them. So I think it's super important, and especially if they're going to be working with our Dream Academy students with instrumental and technology music creation. That's something that we want to see. What have they learned? So
I think to Joe's point, I think we should be reviewing everything that we spend money on, and not once a year, maybe twice a year, because by the end of that year, it's time to renew them again. So if we want to make any corrections or additions, if we're only doing it once a year, it's kind of late. Additionally, I just wanted to ask about the pre-K program. I knew that Dr. Adams, I don't know if you were aware that they are Grow and J, our pre-K, the two that we have now, Bradley and Thurgood were Grow and J 5-star programs, but they were supposed to recertify. I don't know if that was done. Do you know if that was done?
Yes, we're in the process of, we're only waiting, the only thing we're waiting for now is the site visit. Everything else, we're still at the 5-star rating, and the only thing left
So
right
you have the
now-
provisional 5-star, because I know they were
Yes.
doing provisional.
And the only thing missing is them coming to visit the site, which they couldn't do during COVID, which they will do during this school year.
Yeah, they haven't opened it up yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're right where we need to be.
Okay.
Yep.
So can we do something? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. So can we either amend that particular item to include some sort of report back to the board? Or is this something that we would have to do on a separate vote?
Joe, I think that what the board president was saying is that that should be a regular occurrence, updating the board on certain programs and stuff to make sure that, just to see what's going on and for the following year if we're going to re-up a contract.
Right.
And I thought that Mr. Reeves
Yeah.
was going to come back to us about something after that.
Yeah, I've set up a meeting with them for next week and to discuss exactly that, so that way we'll have some things to present to all of you.
But to my point also, Joe, what we discussed, I think, a while ago is almost everything that's introduced. Like, we need to be reviewing the clubs to make sure that they're being attended regularly. Like, anything that we're spending extra money on, we need to be reviewing to make sure that we're spending our money wisely. So if we can, I guess, kind of discuss what that looks like what kind of matrix we're going to use to measure, how often it is, that's a whole big discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on matrices, but I think that's where the administrators come into play to figure out what that's going to look like, what that rubric
All I know
looks
is the
like.
word.
Yeah, that's it. I just know the movie. So I think that's super important.
If I can, just, there's no problem with that to the extent that, if it is an instructional program, the expectation is that through the superintendent, we would have reports out on progress and things like that. But for non-instructional type, events and extracurriculars, certainly there's no restriction on it, but I just want to caution the board that to the extent we're talking about instructional programming, we're going to look to the superintendent and the administration to essentially provide us with the metrics and progress reporting, et cetera.
If I may just add, there is a board policy about extracurricular and clubs that, there's, at the end of the year, there should be a summary about whether they've been successful or not, or whether to continue in the following year, just to update that.
And just to add, I would, especially with the clubs, I would like representation of a club member, like a student,
Well, we have
to
that.
kind of come in and, no, not the student that's on the board, but each club to maybe have a student come like once a year for them to kind of tell us how they're enjoying it, what's going on. Or they can report it to Dr. Adams, and Dr. Adams can report it to us. But I would like to not only know from the teachers and the instructors, but from the students that are attending the programs. Because maybe there's changes that could be made that they know, but they're not getting asked.
We want to make, yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that this doesn't become like a cumbersome thing, you know,
So-
especially when it's like manga club or something like that, but I get it.
Like, it could be simplified. I mean, if it's starting off, it might be cumbersome because anything that you're just starting. But I know that when people are attending things, there's sometimes that they see something that the instructors are not seeing because they're in it, you know?
Madam President, that is part of the evaluation process of all academic programs in terms of getting student input, survey information. That's also part of the debriefing in terms of presentations to the board related to the programming. So as we look at student services and extracurricular activities and partnerships with such like Lake House, those are part of the debriefing that we would update the board on from the respective departments. So that is one of the things in terms of the reporting out throughout the year and updating the board in relationship to our renewals, contract renewals that will be happening. So I just want to kind of, you know, put that out there in terms of making sure that student participation and student voice is an intricate part of that evaluation process that the respective schools and the respective directors do take when renewing or non-renewing those partnerships.
Are you saying that that's going to happen moving forward? Because when we were on the board and ROTC went down, we didn't even know until it was done.
As long as I'm sitting in this seat, that will happen.
Okay, so, no, I mean, if it's moving forward, then absolutely.
Yeah, I can only speak while I'm
Okay.
acting.
I just wanted to say one other thing about Lake House. I mean, this is in no way like a criticism on Lake House because they're so ingrained in the community and they do so much good work. So I want to just make sure that folks know that, you know, they do incredible stuff as someone who, you know, was a customer of theirs in the past. So it would just be nice to have those updates from them. So that's all.
Okey-dokey, thank you. Mr. LaRocca?
With regard to the Finance Committee, our first agenda point, the ESSER funding, American Rescue Plan, the federal dollars. So with regard to ESSER 2, we've been substantially approved. That's $7 million. $4 million of that is going for the various projects, HVAC work, as you see in the minutes, for Bradley Elementary School and Thurgood Marshall. What we want to do is move ahead with, do we have the contract for the architect? We talked about moving ahead with paying the architect to get started. The concern is there's going to be, with federal dollars everywhere, there's going to be a big demand, and we anticipate many districts will be looking at ventilation issues similar to what we have in terms of upgrading.
Yes, that's correct, and there's also, since we're spending federal dollars, different procurement regulations that we need to follow that are slightly different from the state regulations, so we have to look at those as well as we move forward. But yes, we'd like to get on into that line as quickly as possible for HVAC equipment and improvements that are going to be made.
And ESSER 3, we've been allocated $15 million. We anticipate somewhere around late November getting those budget guidelines with regard to how that's going to work. Second point about partnerships, foundation, booster clubs. I think this was also discussed, buildings and grounds, and they can, Anthony can make mention of that. We discussed maybe really limiting anything we might do. Obviously, we're very interested in grant funding or foundation support, but but also a question of, in our committee, that we drive what we're going for and whether we at the time we're going for a particular grant, look at partners at that time rather than an overall partner to somehow take the lead in writing grants. Central office relocation, also with buildings and grounds, as we have a timeline, repurpose Obama, we really felt that it's going to be an additional 2-year lease that we would recommend on the current administration building, and that would be, according to the landlord, they responded to administration a 1.5% increase per year for a 2-year lease extension. The APASA negotiations, we have reached agreement. Administration reviewed their salary guides. It went back to them for a modification in light of the ceiling we set for the increase. We have not yet received that modification, so we anticipate ratifying in August, getting that information with regard to the salary guide. Also looking at Asbury Park High School Stadium and looking at this in terms of multi-phase plan for repairs so that we can do improvements that will fit within our budget. That issue and another that might have been covered in buildings and grounds, there were some concerns expressed regarding the A7FL use of the stadium. That is the full contact football league with no equipment. And there were some issues about the behavior of fans. So it may be something we as a board want to consider if they want to use the stadium again next year, whether be aware of that and whether anything from requiring additional security or other aspects that we might want to make unique to the contract with this group, as it seems that the events are becoming much more popular and there are crowd issues. That was it for finance.
Can I mention?
Sure.
Can I mention the football league? Granted, we requested additional officers to be there. They weren't available on Sunday. However, I know there were not any major incidences during that football tournament. Crowd control might be something we look at in the future, but as far as anything like major that we have to be concerned with, it didn't happen. But I think, going forward, as we did in the past, that yes, that might be something we need to look at, but just so you know, this year, there weren't anything major. Just want to add that.
Are there any additional questions or comments?
Yes, I do. I have question on number 3, the central office location. Now, this is a lease, is it the lease purchase that we had discussed prior to, or is this just leasing?
No, this would just be a lease for 2 years at a 1.5% increase per year.
So we're not going to consider purchasing?
That wasn't an agenda item that came up.
Well, I have a question about that, because I
Well,
know
wouldn't
that
that
was
be
discussed.
wouldn't that be a contract issue, that if we're going to discuss it, it'd be an executive session?
Well, I suppose so, but I would like to get an answer on that.
So I believe the conversation that we had, the criteria was met in terms of options.
It is an option. You know what? We'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Rim?
I was just going to say that that was actually mentioned in the Buildings and Grounds meeting, and we're going to elaborate on that and actually, oh, it did? Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Jeff. All right.
Okay, you can keep your mic on.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said, Mr. Remy.
No, I was just saying that it was actually mentioned in the Buildings and Grounds meeting, and we were going to ask on, for the full board on, you know, the vote on how we should move forward with that. Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Remy, you can go.
So you went through all 4 topics that we discussed?
Sure, would you like me to touch on those? or
No, I
you,
was just saying,
I would think the first one we just talked about, so.
yeah. We discussed about the partnerships and number 3, item number 3. Okay. And also I wanted to mention the naming of the fields as well. The Bradley School field, the field right here, the soccer field, after Mula Lewis, soccer player, Haitian soccer player from Asbury Park, and also the middle school field, named after James Tramilara.
So, Mr.
That was
Remmel, we
all.
did send out the bios of both of those gentlemen to the board maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I think
I
after we
just-
last discussed that matter, as well as the policy and the process that we need to do to consider that.
Okay. All right, cool. And also, back against number 3, how do you guys, I guess, should I ask that here? How do you guys want to proceed? Do we want to get a third party to help, you know, revamp the middle school in Barack Obama, those locations, and and the high school as well?
Mr. Remy, I understood that what the committee's going to do is narrow it down to 1 or 2 projects. That's what I understood from your minutes.
Yeah.
So I think you, as a committee, should meet and, as a committee, recommend it to the board of which project that you would like to proceed with. And
That was actually what we're,
Because all I got,
yeah. That's actually what we're supposed to be discussing today.
so then the next procedure would be to write up a proposal.
Okay.
Before he moved forward, we wanted to bring it to the whole board. We didn't want to act as a committee, have the attorney write it up before we talk to all you guys.
So could you narrow it down to 1 project? Which one would be more important to you, or to the committee, which one?
2. We were thinking about starting off with 2.
Those are awfully large projects.
Excuse me?
Well, I know the stadium is immediate, but so is Obama. So
Yeah, the
those are
stadium
two.
was number 1. And then number 2 would be the Barack Obama.
So what are you suggesting, that there be some sort of, I guess, proposal of what the board would approve to go out for competitive bid?
Correct.
Okay, so something would have to be drawn up first for the board to agree to.
If I can, just jump in for a moment. I think the best way to handle this would be if we've identified, we'll call it priority 1 project. From there, we should look at what the committee and the board feels in terms of the scope of work that's to be done, the specifications of the work that's supposed to be done or want to be done. And then from there, once we have all of that information, my office will be able to put together some specifications for a bid, essentially. So it's great that we've identified the what I'll call the first project, but now we need to drill down within that project what exactly the board would like to have happen in terms of repairs and scope of the project. And then from there, we'll be able to kind of develop the specs, if you will, for then the public to bid on, review and bid on.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Are there any questions or additional comments?
Yeah, I looked up the policy for naming facilities, and just to clarify, that all it needs is direct action from the board. There were a few people that had asked me in the community whether it was, they had to do petitions and all this stuff. But no, it's just direct action from the board, so they just have to put it up for a motion and then vote.
Wouldn't, can I just add to that? Wouldn't it be good to see how the public feels about it, too? You know, we don't want to be accused of acting.
Is that what we've done that?
We've done that in the past. I'm
It
trying to
actually
think.
came from the public.
Did we do that for naming the stadium?
I'm trying to think
I
of
don't
how.
think that we did.
Maybe not. I just, okay,
This actually came from the public and
Oh, okay.
many different parties.
okay.
So that's why I brought it to the board. So the public's behind it.
So, may I ask a question? And the names again, one is Familaro. Hey, Kenneth. How are you? Okay, and you? And what was the name of the other?
Mueller Lewis.
I'm sorry?
Mueller Lewis.
Okay, thank you.
He was a Haitian from Asbury Park, went through Asbury Park
Yes.
High School, great soccer player, did a lot, inspired us other Haitians, especially me, to be in the position I'm in right now. So,
And this is for the soccer field at Bradley?
correct.
Okay, and the
Right behind us.
Familaro?
The
naming
middle
that-
school, the middle
The
school.
middle school, okay. So are we making a motion?
We're in a work session right now.
We'll make a motion for that at the 7 o'clock?
Okay, all right, cool.
Mr. Gavillo?
Yes. Yeah, for the policy committee, everything was second reading. We didn't have a meeting because it was basically the same stuff. One of the things that I did want to highlight was the bridge year policy, and I think it's a pretty interesting policy to kind of read over and see when a student wants to do a bridge year and kind of the different steps that they have to take and everything, but.
What is that?
The bridge year is, and of course, I just had it in my laptop just went on the fritz. So basically, a bridge year is, and correct me if I'm using the wrong language, Jeff. If someone, especially because of COVID, goes on for like that fifth year, right? And kind of what that entails, what are the regulations behind it, and kind of what are the different outcomes that come out of that, you know. And also says, and the policy states how they would, they're allowed to graduate with their fourth year class, or the next one, the bridge year class, which would be like the fifth year. The thing that makes this important is, especially during the past year that we've had, we all know about the summer slide. Now imagine the pandemic slide. So a lot of the students will take that fifth year to kind of make sure that they've caught up and all that. So I think it's a pretty great policy and a very interesting read. And then some of the other policies was about evaluation of superintendents and that kind of stuff. The bridge year is a pilot program, so it's kind of a new thing, and that's all I got.
The bridge year, is it voluntary, or is it because they don't meet the criteria to wrap up in their fourth
I believe
year?
it's voluntary, according to it. It says, let's see. All public school districts that enroll high school students must offer eligible students the opportunity to participate in the Bridge Year pilot program. And then it's up to the student to notify the high schools. I guess we're going to need to have a Bridge Year liaison of their intent to participate. So a lot of this is more about the policy of what the schools have to do and what the liaison has to do. But to be eligible, you have to be in the graduating class of either 2021 or 2022 you have to meet all the applicable high school graduation requirements by the end of senior year. You need to be 19 years or younger during the entirety of the bridge year. If someone turns 20 during the end of the bridge year, they're not eligible to participate. And they have to maintain a grade point average of 2.0 during that bridge year. There's also some language about students with disabilities who receive special education and related services under IDEA, and they must be granted the opportunity to also participate in the bridge year pilot program. And then it also talks about academics and the implementing of goals for the bridge year for each student. And that includes academic support, coursework, co-curricular, and athletic participation.
I just have a question regarding the cost of this to the district, and if it's a special, somebody who has needs that are different, they need like a IEP or whatever, the additional expense that it's going to be. Not that I want to hold anything back, but just so the board knows that we're going to have to, there's extra expenses. Is this a mandated policy?
This is I believe it's a mandated policy, right, Jeff? Yep.
Yes, it is.
So it's a mandated
Yep,
policy without any additional funding, that's all. That's just a question I had.
What was that?
Unfunded mandate, yeah.
Unfunded mandate.
I know we're supposed to get more
Well, I
funding.
would think that those students would go into our ASSA account and then be incorporated into the formula, as calculated for state aid. But we'll have to look into that to see if
No, I'm just
it's
thinking,
excluded or
just so
included.
for next year, that's included in the, how the budget's gonna work out and stuff, so that's all.
Okey dokey, Ms. Breach?
Okay, we spoke about homecoming this year. I think I touched on it at the last meeting. Because of our scheduling, homecoming is going to be very early this year, September 24th. We're still, we're working as of right now to try to get things set up as far as a tent and some things to give out, and also our dinners. I don't want to put it official yet because we've always in the past, since I've been there, had an honorary captain from one of the alumni years, and since we didn't have one last year, we were looking at to honor somebody from the 50th class from last year. It's not confirmed yet. I'm still trying to make that happen. That person is a graduate of Asbury Park High School, worked in the district for many years. Hopefully next meeting we'll be able to solidify that. Also, our winter coaches have been posted. We have our media day for our fall sports, which is scheduled for August 18th, starting at 11 a.m. If anybody would like to come, all fall sports are going to be there to have their photos taken, and we've also posted our fall and winter coaches for this year. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ms. Breach. Are there any questions or comments at this time? No? Okay, well, that wraps up committee. Yes, please.
As the board knows that's involved in the superintendent's search, we were going to get a statement from, to put out in reference to a search update, and I know all the board members on the committee did receive it through an email. So I just wanted to read it real quick. As many of you know, Dr. Sancha Gray resigned her position of Superintendent of Schools on June 30th, 2021. The Asbury Park Board of Education has entered into a contract with New Jersey School Boards Association to facilitate the search process for a new superintendent of schools. Our New Jersey School Boards Association search consultant, Kathy Weinkoff, has developed 4 SurveyMonkey tools to help in gathering community input from residents in Asbury Park, as well as administrators and staff input from our school and from our Spanish and Haitian Creole-speaking community members. The information gathered will be used to shape a variety of candidate review documents and interview questions. All input is anonymous, and no email or identifiable information is needed to complete the surveys. All data provided in the surveys will go first to New Jersey school boards and will be provided to the Board of Education to assist them in selection of the candidates to interview, development of interview questions, and select the finalists. The links to the survey are already posted on the website and will also be emailed to staff and community. These surveys will be live and accessible through Monday, August 16th, 2021, and we hope everybody participates. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we want to open up the floor to public participation in accordance to the Open Public Meeting Act. If you have a comment or a question, please come up to the mic, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Brannigan, do we have anybody on the WebEx? No. We have no emails and nobody on WebEx asking questions.
Jeff, what was the email address?
It's public comment at asburypark.k12.nj.us.
Okay, at this time, we're going to be closing public participation. So we're going to have review of regular agenda items. Dr. Adams, if you please.
Are there any questions on any of the items? B1 through B1, B2, B3, B4.
I just wanted to ask about B4, we're going to discuss an exec before we vote?
Yes, we will. There are
Thank you.
items. B5. Any questions?
No questions at this time? Okay, thank you, Dr. Adams. Mr. Hastings?
Thank you, Madam President. Be happy to take any questions on items from C1 through C5. I'd like to note on page C4, item 13, we need to make a correction there. Item 13 is the use of facilities, and you can see there the custodial fees of $1,035 are included. However, the event is taking place when our staff is normally on duty, so those fees should be zero. So that third line should read rental fees of $650. So $650 is the fee that's asking to be waived for that particular event. And then I would also note on page C.
I didn't hear where you were.
Page C4. Number 13 on the bottom.
Right there.
So on that second line, towards the end there, you'll see custodial fees of $1,035. That is actually zero because we have staff on site.
Okay, thank you.
So the total on line 3 is $650 that would be waived, and that's the fee for the actual facility. And then I would note the donation on page C5, number 14, from the toy drive for scholarships and bookstore credit cards for our students. I'd be happy to take any other questions.
I have for C3, number 8, I wanted to talk about that in exec before we vote, and I think it just needs to be rewritten a little bit. It's a little general, so we'll discuss that.
I'm sorry, it needs to be,
There's some editing has to be done. It's very general. I just had a question, so we can talk about that.
Thank you, Mr. Hastings. Are we going to do, we're going to... Okay, whereas the Open Public Meeting Act allows from exclusion from discussion at the public portion of the meeting of certain matters as outlined below, and whereas the Asbury Park Board of Education wishes to discuss such matters made and will make such discussions public when the proper conclusion has been reached. Now therefore it be resolved that the July 22nd, 2021 Asbury Park, New Jersey, for the purpose as outlined and described below, upon return, action may be taken.
And for the members of the public who are present both physically and virtually, the board is going to be entering into executive session to discuss matters related to personnel, contracting, and to receive attorney-client advice. It's anticipated that this executive session will last approximately 15 minutes or so, with a goal of starting the regular meeting at 7 p.m. Or shortly thereafter. Thank you.
We
May I
need
please have a
someone-
motion?
Yes, thank you.
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.